So this week we are looking at the 6 key questions that help you choose your best feature film idea. So welcome to Feature Film in a Year, breaking down the process and busting the myths of making a movie. This little series we've been talking about key questions to choose your best idea for your next feature film. This next question is quite a deep one. Is your idea practically possible? So on the ground, camera in hand, I've got this many weeks to shoot it. Can it be done?
Yeah.
How are you guys at with that question for you?
This has probably been one of the questions that we've had to really look at in more detail perhaps than the others. I'd love us to be in the place where, we just had a blank checkbook to be making our movie and not having to worry about limitations like cost and practicalities and locations. But the reality is, we are going to have to make something that uses what we have available, or the costs are just going to spiral, and that means it's just not going to happen. So if we're going to make it, we need an idea that is doable, that works with the limitations that we have.
Well, yeah, it's real.
Yeah, and I think we've said the filmmaking in whatever scale has certain limitations put on there, but as a kind of indie filmmaker, it's really looking at what resources you've got, maybe financially, and then what you can squeeze out of kind of the different, what locations are around you. Do you know people that can act, or can you find people that can act? All those different things. Can you cover costs, in terms of you want to feed people, in a practical sense. But all these different elements of thinking what is going to help get this film made, which essentially is what you want. You want to get over the line, really.
Yeah.
So setting yourself up for something where you're going to either run out of money, or is going to be such a challenge on one little aspect, say a location, or getting a certain actor, paying a certain actor crazy, amount. None of that's going to help. It's all about removing barriers and working with what you've got, which is essentially a very practical.
Yeah, I think what I find interesting about this question is, I think I'd never expected practical issues to be so far-reaching as to even the very core idea needs to take that into consideration. I guess you're just like, I just want to create, this is an amazing idea, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to do Lord of the Rings, but I've got an iPhone. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that actually, it does go that deep.
It feels very unartistic to be asking questions about how much is it going to cost and that kind of thing. But it's essential to avoid that kind of running to ground thing that can just so easily happen. And we've had this happen with short projects, with some feature ideas that we've kind of taken a fair way down the line before. And there's just nothing more discouraging than just hitting a point where you have poured not just time and effort, but your own kind of hopes and expectations into something, and then just getting to this point where, because of something frustrating and practical and limiting that you hadn't considered enough at the beginning, the whole thing just kind of runs to ground. You just realise you just can't make it happen. And that might be something like, visual effects. I think it's one of our short films that is still in post-production, because there's just a few visual effects shots that need to get kind of finished, and I just didn't estimate properly what that was gonna look like to get that completed.
Because you basically
realistic.
You never know what, because even setting up the perfect scenario, there are going to be things that happen which are essentially barriers that you need to work through or work around if you can do. But in its primacy, your idea and your locations and who you have involved, you want to try and set that out. So from the first step, you're trying to make life easier for yourself, knowing that there will be challenges all the way through that, and you want to get to so that'll give you the best chance, I think. Whereas if you set something up which is just this very unachievable thing, you're just really not doing yourself any favours. So
I have the inside access. I know that this question has actually had a big impact on the idea you've decided to go with for this feature film that you're doing this next year. Could you invite us into that situation a little bit?
Yeah, so an idea that we talked about, and actually taken quite a way down the road already in terms of like a first draft of a script last year. That we were planning to throw out the window so that we could be doing the feature film in a year. But we had this idea which was largely set inside a moving vehicle. And there were various like ways that we were planning and thinking that we could be shooting that. We probably wouldn't be doing it actually in a literally moving vehicle. We'd probably set up something with rear projection. We looked into kind of green screen stuff. We did some kind of tests on that kind of thing. But even at the end of the day, if I could say 100% for certain now that yes, we know the exact techniques to use to get a credible looking like nighttime driving setup where we could just have our actors in there and do all the stuff, there would still be like logistics of okay, where are we going to find a kind of warehouse to film that, where are we going to get 4, 5, 6 projectors maybe that are bright enough, and it's going to require a whole load of technical lighting setup. And the further down that road you go, the more you realise the stuff I'm thinking about here for this film is not story, characters, performance. The stuff I'm thinking about is technical things, which there's a place for them, and they're important, and they're part of making the film look good and getting past audiences' credibility to the point where they buy in and they accept it as a real world. But they're not the main thing, and they can so easily become the main thing.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's very, very grateful to Joe here for asking those difficult questions. Right?
And I think that's the benefit.
Tell us why you've been a picky little.
I think it is that because from the outset of us having Andy having the idea and then us developing it, it was because essentially it's a one location, inside a vehicle, which is often people talk about. If you simplify your locations, that's a big thing in terms of crew and actors. You can do it, and so that was a good kind of starting point, first step one location. But then the more that we talked about it was the technical challenges just kept on tripping us up the more that we were looking into that.
Because it's safe to say that the story required a car. You can't get rid of the car. You're like, well, it's not the story anymore.
And I don't think it wasn't. I don't think it's wrong of us to be ambitious in a certain extent of like, what can we do with the technology, and could we get a car? Could this work essentially?
Or can we do it in a really creative way, outside of the box thinking?
Yeah, because you see films that do really interesting things in I think the smallest I can think of is the Ryan Reynolds film Buried, where he's inside a.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
I'm in a coffin. I don't know where. Please help! I'm scared.
But yeah, there's things.
But for us with this, as Andy was saying, it kept on tripping us up, and then it was helpful for because I was a bit further on the outside in terms of Andy had written up the the initial ideas and the initial idea of the story and different elements for me to be like, this has got to work, and so that's why it can help sometimes with having someone that you trust with the idea that wants to make it, but can be a little bit further removed. And that's why you see. I mean, some people just do everything by themselves, and that's great. But more and more, I'm noticing, people who collaborate when writing, people who collaborate. There's often lots of different producers, which makes sense. Sometimes directing together. It takes a certain. I think personalities and shared vision.
And there's a give and take there, which is appropriate.
Yeah, definitely, and clarity. But but yeah, just definitely that those aspects started to override, so it was time to switch.
Oh, I think it's a really key principle, especially considering how much this question alone has had such a deep impact for you guys. It's literally changed the story you're going to do for your film.
And it doesn't mean we throw away that other story.
Yeah,
Sorry if I jumped the gun on that.
No. Great. So what's different about this new idea that you've kind of jumped to because of this good diagnostic question?
It's set in space. No.
With inflatable...
Where do you go with that?
Inflatable cars. I think like fairly immediately the idea, I could see it being set in, a bunker, two people. Even if we don't actually choose to set it there, like if we don't, it'll be because we found an even better sort of alternative, and it's right on the practical side of things. It's more doable, and it will still be as interesting because at the core it's got that character, and the things that are fascinating about that character. So
there's almost an element of this new idea, this new spark, this story, at its basic level. You can achieve that with all your resources.
In terms of what's around us, in terms of there's a starting point of an interior location and exterior locations where we live, essentially in our surrounding area that are accessible. But so there's a start point there that we could find. We may find better places.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's there's somewhere to film it as a location. So we've gone from somewhere where the technical requirements for our one location overrode, everything to actually switching the idea that we've got now can work with what we've got. So we can focus on other aspects.
And it might seem like we it's a cop out. We picked an idea because it's easy to do, but actually we picked an idea which is practically easy for us in our setting to do, and that just means that all the energy and effort that we would have been putting into researching or finding all those other things, we can now actually put into developing a really strong story. And that's good characters, getting some good actors.
Focus on the things,
the key stuff that people watch films for.
And the amount of times where you do hear from films that have hit the box office and whatnot, they haven't achieved what they wanted to because of those issues. Like we ran out of time there because that technical issue. Like actually, it can derail a project. Like from what it could be this good, but it just wasn't because we ran out of time. Or that big logistical nightmare happened. Yeah. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So we're going to move on to our next question. But before we do, just like to remind you guys to hit subscribe, stay in touch with us, and also give us any of your thoughts in the comments about what we talk about. We'd love to hear it. Thanks, guys.